Hi there, I am John Holtkamp. If you're watching this, then hopefully you work with us on a church app for your church. And that's why we're making this video. I am the founder of FaithLink Apps and the Church TV app. And we've been doing apps since the end of 2012. We started out working with our church. They asked us to make an app because we saw a need. We saw that, hey, people love apps. Remember back then the saying was, hey, there's an app for that. So they saw, hey, there's a need for an app. It could be awesome to have. So we developed one. And then from there, we were like, hey, we could do this for other churches. It would be a great thing we could do that could really help people connect with the church. And we've moved forward from there, and now it's 2017, and we're still making apps for churches and now making apps for a lot of churches. But along the path to get here, we saw what makes an app successful for a church. And that's what this video is about. The point of the video is creating a culture in your church where everyone goes to the app, where the app is not just a cool tool for the church, it is an essential tool for the church, and maybe the most important we'll say the most important tool. Obviously the Bible, all their stuff, but when it comes to technology, the most important tool in your church. So we started working with our church in 2000 at the end of 2012, and it came to be around 2014. So we've had the app for about a year and a half to 2 years, and usage was around, we'll say maybe 10% to 20% people were using the app a lot and loving the app, and there were a few more percent, 5 to 10% more that would use it from time to time. And at that point, the app is still worth the cost of the app. Because, and that's for you to decide, but to us, the cost, it was worth the cost of the app, because, you're having now, 20-25% of people being able to work with the church on a different, higher level in a way they enjoy, and interacting with materials coming out of the church. And for other tools that we pay for with the church, that's, to me, from what we understood as a church staff, it really seemed like there was a lot of value there for that. However, we saw other churches that were getting so much more usage out of it. I shouldn't say we, us as a company, not us as a church, because I'm studying the analytics, looking at the analytics for churches, and I'm seeing churches launch an app, and they're getting 1,000 people using the app on day one. And they're a church of like 1,500, we'll say. I say we'll say, because they have multiple campuses, but this is campus of 1,500 has like 2/3 adoption rate on day one. What is up with that? And they have continual usage. We see a church of less than 100. So now we're going opposite side of the spectrum. We have a church of less than 100. And they also have an extreme adoption rate. Not just people using the app on day one, but people using the app regularly, where it's obvious, hey, they don't just think this is a cool thing that a few people are using. There's something different about this church where they're using the app a lot. And as we saw that, we started studying as a company why that was. And I started trying to apply it at my church. And then, as we come to 2016, we're in early 2017 now. We're looking back at the 2016 data now. We see that we had 40,000 sessions. So we had well over 40,000 sessions at our church. Our church is a church of around 400. So having 40,000 sessions, if we divide that by 52 to get how many people are using it a week, that's 769 sessions a week. So that means we have just under 2 sessions per person in the church a week. Now, when you hear that, that does not mean that everyone's using the app twice. Obviously, people are using it more than twice a week, and that means some people aren't using it at all. But still, that sort of adoption definitely shows that this tool has become something important in the culture of our church, and it's no longer just, whatever. It's become something where we have people at our church in their 70s who don't know that I made the app, I have anything to do with the app, or the company that made the app, and they come to me and they tell me about the app, and about using the calendar in the app, and about sermon notes in the app. They come to me advertising the app to me because the culture now is, dude, all of the information's here. You should be using it. So they have no idea. Of course I know everything. I love it when that happens, but that's what we started seeing as we started applying some things that we saw other churches doing. And what's interesting is you'd think by 2014, we've had the app for a year and a half, I would have this, fleshed out idea of everything. And honestly, we still weren't sure what it was that would make an app so amazing. We saw usage, like I said, we saw so much value that it was obviously something we wanted to focus on. But it wasn't until we started applying these things that it became like instrumental in our church. So I'm going to go through 3 things that you need to focus on, and that's what made it so now we see incredible adoption and a culture change in the church because of the app. These three things are that leadership needs to understand and have buy-in. The second thing is promotion for the app. And the third thing is that you need to keep the app info in the app updated. So I'm going to cover these in detail now, but those are the three things I'm going to cover. So the first one, leadership, understanding, and buy-in. One thing that I was not even aware of, and I'm guessing most staff wasn't even aware of, is that a lot of the leadership didn't know what the value of the app was, and they didn't even know what the app could do. So what we ended up doing was we had a meeting for around the 30 most influential families in the church. And we did this every month, so it wasn't just for this app meeting. But during one of these meetings, we had them all come together, and the pastor asked me to speak to them for around 10 minutes. And during that time, we had them all of them, every single one, pull out their phones, and we walked through every single section of the app and what it could be used for. And the point of this was just so they knew what it was, and so that by the end, they could understand how everything could change in the church if we could have everyone using these tools to help them interact with the church better. So, I mean, we would open it, and we just went through sermon notes, the media section, podcasts, how you could even share a podcast with someone, how you could use the calendar, and just through every single aspect of the app. And the thing that caught me off guard was once we had finished this, there were things that the head pastor didn't even know you could do with things like notes and calendar. And then even now, this very year, we have a new youth pastor who's been working with us for about half a year, and he watched a video that I put together, and he didn't even realize what the calendar was for after working with us for 6 months and how valuable that was. So this meeting helps people just understand, the influential people, to understand what the app can be used for, and then they can propagate that message through social media, by talking to people in church. You want to build up excitement and understanding of, hey, this is where we could be at if we start using this correctly. Our goal is to have it so someone comes up to you and asks you a question about the calendar, you can pull out your phone and be like, hey, have you checked the church app to see? Because look, right here, it says it right here, and I can press information. I can get all of the information I need about every single event, and that can apply for the calendar, for sermon notes, for everything. The goal is that if someone asks a question, you start teaching people, obviously not in a mean manner or condescending, but just teaching people, hey, have you checked the church app? And then you pull out your phone, show it to them, so next time they think, oh, maybe I should check the app. And that way, maybe within 6 months to a year, every single person in the church knows everything they need. They can just pull out the app, and you're not telling them, hey, you need to go to our church website page or church.info or whatever. No, you can just pull the phone out of your app and not navigate anywhere. Just click our icon, and boom, you are now looking at all of the information we have. So most likely, everything is there, and it's very obvious how it is based off of how the app is laid out. And that culture change has made a huge, or that introduction of understanding that and how the culture can change and getting that knowledge into the leadership at our church has made a huge change. And that was literally the first major step we took. And I didn't even realize how big it was for a few months, because it was probably 3 to 6 months after that where I started having people come up to me and talk to me about the app, and not knowing that I was the owner of the company that made it. Because it started propagating and people started getting excited about it and seeing how things were changing. So that kind of talks about how the leadership, understanding, and buy-in matters. That's huge, and one of the major things with this. The second thing is promotion. It's really easy to have a church app and think, oh man, this is awesome. Like, we just launched the church app. The people from your church have worked with us, and combined, we've been able to get all the graphics we needed. We've divided everything up. It looks fantastic. And you're like, all right, this is everything we ever wanted: the calendar, the notes, the podcast. We've been dreaming of this. We have it. We're going to promote it like crazy this month. So for the next 4 weeks during service, we're going to take at least 1 minute to talk about the app, make sure people know what it can do. We're going to apply leadership understanding, point number 1, and make sure everyone understands the culture and where we're going. And then after that month, this thing is going to run itself. It's going to be awesome. We'll never mention it again, and it's just going to be amazing. Maybe we'll even put a slide up in the announcements before church, just a slide that says, hey, we have an app, and then it's going to be perfect. So the problem here is that an app is not a machine that runs itself. It is not a machine that promotes itself. So, and the way I know this from fact is that we were watching the statistics for our app, and this is again going back to around 2014, the same period of time. when we really started focusing on analytics because of the success we saw in other churches. And we noticed that we were getting, and this is what you'll see in every church app. On Sunday mornings, you'll see a huge boost in usage. And then throughout the week, you'll see usage down here. And then you'll see a huge boost of usage on Sunday mornings and then down here. And we noticed that, okay, we were getting the number of sessions we were getting showed that probably around 60 to 75% of the people in our church were opening the app every Sunday. So that was pretty good. So now we have some guest speaker come and talk, and they didn't even know they were supposed to open the app. It's on us. We didn't coach them to open the app, us as church staff. So they come, they talk. I take note that I've been watching data for the last 3 months, 2 months at this point, and they didn't mention the app because I've been focusing on how much we're talking about the app. They don't mention it at all. The app usage drops to half for that Sunday. So we have 300 app sessions on Sunday. Now we have 150 app sessions on Sunday. This app has been live for probably 1.5 to 2 years, like somewhere inside that window. So everyone should know we have it. Everyone should know they should use it. And sermon notes have been consistently posted. Materials have been consistently posted to the app, consistently for way over a year, maybe over 2 years at this point. Just not mentioning the app for 5 seconds before the message, saying, hey, if you'll pull out your phones, you can follow along in the app and take notes of your own there and email the notes to yourself. So let's say what I just said took about 5 seconds and I go right into the message. This does not mean you pause the message for a minute. This doesn't mean you need to make a video and play it every week. Just remind people about the app. Just not doing that, app usage dropped down to half. Okay, so pastor comes back, he speaks the next week, and the app does the same thing he's always done. Mention the app for 5 seconds. App usage jumps back up to where it had been. We're just about where we had been. Very good usage at this point. We'd had the talk with we've already had the meeting for leadership understanding of getting those 30 families to understand the value of the app and the culture we're trying to form. The following week, the youth pastor speaks. This time the youth pastor knows he's supposed to mention the app, but he is the youth pastor, so obviously he doesn't. And we see app usage drop once again to half. So now we have some pretty solid data points. I mean, obviously it would be great to run a test for eternity and see how this works out. But we have some solid data points showing over 3 months. Here's the 2 points where we have the app not mentioned and the app drops down to half. We have no other data points like that on a Sunday morning. So I go and talk to the pastor now, show him what I'm finding, and say, like, I really think it's important that we mention this every Sunday. Like, it makes a huge difference when we mention it. So let's actually try to emphasize that. We decided to mention it before the sermon, right going into the sermon like we always do, but also during the weekly announcements, like the pastor's wife or someone else would get up and talk. And as she's doing that, she would say, hey, you can follow along with our announcements in the app. You can go right here. You can go to the media section in the Mosaic Minute, which is what we call our weekly newsletter, and you can follow along with the announcements as I go through them. You don't even need to subscribe to our newsletter. You can just access them there. And something like that might have been a little long, but 5 seconds there, 5 seconds before the message, app usage jumped higher than it ever has before. And part of that's probably because maybe not everybody wants to access sermon notes, but some of those people actually wanted to access announcements and didn't even know they could. So just reminding those two things, app usage now, 2 years out, we see app usage go higher than it ever has because we decided to invest 5 to 10 extra seconds into service. So that just gives you an idea of how important this is. And to kind of hit on something else in this very same area, there's a lot of information going around right now about apps, the importance of apps, how they affect the church, whether it's good or bad. And one thing I see a lot of is reports of people saying, well, 80% of Google Play apps aren't even used. Like, they don't get downloaded a single time. So obviously you don't want a church app. And something I want to bring up is that when you hear data like that, I'm an app developer. I know the ecosystem of the app world very well because of that. And I can create Flappy Bird 14, right? The game Flappy Bird. I can make 14 just to put ads in it and make a little bit of money off of it. Make it super quick, put it on the App Store, and get 0 downloads. And that's not that strange. That's what people are doing all over the world. They're creating rip-off apps, putting them in the App Store, and they're getting 0 downloads. Because they don't have a platform to advertise them on. Where am I going to go tell everyone about Flappy Bird 14 and get them excited? I can't. So it gets 0 downloads. With your church app, you have a platform where every single week you can talk about it, and you can do it in a way where it's not annoying. Like me saying, hey, if you pull out your apps, you can follow along and take notes. That's not annoying. That makes absolute sense. If I'm doing announcements and say, hey, all week long you can see all of this stuff in the app without subscribing to anything, that's not annoying. Like, that's just absolutely helpful. And every week I do that, and you're going to get downloads. Like, I mean, the percent of people in your church that download the app is going to be very high if you do that, because now you're reminding them about the app, showing them the value of the app, and it's not Flappy Bird 14, some crummy app that there's no reason anybody would download. And that's the difference. When you can't apply data for just the Google Play Store and apply it to church apps as if they're one and the same. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is keeping the info in the app updated. We've said leadership, staff, and the core leaders at your church really need to know the value and understand how this app can change the culture of the church. 2, you need to promote the app and not just expect the app to promote itself. And 3, you need to keep the info in the app updated. We have been so blessed with FaithLink apps, and we have literally had almost 0 churches ever stop working with us. But every time a church has stopped working with us, it's been very obvious a year before they stopped working with us, that something was wrong because they stopped posting content to the app. So that means, like, hey, they're not posting podcasts regularly. Sermon notes are going up maybe once a month for one message of the month, if that, maybe once every 2 months. Their calendar is now blank. I mean, the app developer cannot populate your calendar for you. So, I mean, their calendar's blank, like nothing is there. And you know, working with us, like the way we make the app work is so that as you post content where it goes to your website, it's also going to your app. So it's not an extra step to do this. It just means they're not posting content anywhere. And usually this sort of thing happens as a church leadership structure changes. So the new leadership doesn't understand what was done with the app in the past, the value of it, and how content needs to keep going to it. But the problem here is, so let's pretend that you love Facebook. Facebook is a fantastic platform. You think it's the greatest thing ever, and there's nothing you would rather do than go find information in the Facebook app on your phone. So you have 5 people go into the mission field for a short-term mission trip. You know they have information to post somewhere, right? And they're supposed to be posting it every night, and you're expecting it on Facebook, but Facebook isn't changing. They're the only 5 people you follow on Facebook. Your feed is empty except for them, and it's the same thing every day. It's what they said 2 weeks ago as they were preparing to go on the mission field. Nothing has changed. However, they have been kind of, trickling information into this website over here. Right? There's a little bit of info over here. There's nothing in the Facebook app. You do this for a few days, and it doesn't matter how loyal you are to Facebook, eventually you're going to give up on the Facebook app. And chances are good, you're going to be frustrated with the Facebook app, so that once data might start getting posted to it, and maybe the missionaries are like, hey, a week has passed. We actually decided maybe we should post to Facebook. There's a chance you're so frustrated, you're like, well, at least I know information might be here. I certainly don't want to keep looking at Facebook. It's just not worth it. I'm so frustrated. I cannot trust them to put the information there. And that's the problem with the app. Like, the app is not something that's just so awesome people want to open it. It's something where you need to put content there so people can access the content, and now they can grow in God. They can connect with you as a church better as well. It's to help them do both, but without new content. If they're just going to the app and nothing's changing, then why would they keep coming back? And that's not to say you need to post new content to the app every day, but you probably should be posting multiple different areas of content to the app every week. Like, if you're posting podcasts, post the new podcast every week to your website, which is also going to your app, which is probably also going to iTunes. Post the sermon notes so that people know they can open the sermon notes, and that is the number one place to access the sermon notes is in your app if you post sermon notes to your app. And this gives people that dependability to know, hey, whenever I want anything, I can trust the app. Because you cannot build a culture around your app if your app is stagnant. And I just real quick want to bring up a story. We have had churches come to us and be like, we've had an app for years now. We're noticing there's not a lot of usage. What we want to do is add this in and this in and this in and this in and this in. And we'll pay you as much as we need to pay you. We'll pay you over thousands of dollars to integrate all this stuff. We just want to bring app usage up. But when I go and look at the app, They have not posted a new video to their video section in over 2.5 years. They haven't posted sermon notes in 3 months. They post one podcast a month, and it's completely random what podcast they post, like what week is that they post. And they aren't updating social media. They aren't updating their blog. So there is an 80% chance that when you open that app every week on a week-by-week basis, nothing has changed. So my estimate is after 2 weeks of that, you may have irreparably damaged the app in a way that you cannot repair, even if you start promoting it. So that's not to say if you've been doing this wrong for up to this point, like you launched the app and you just didn't understand these principles, that it's hopeless. It's just to say, once you start promoting it the right way, you've got to keep posting content. And hopefully that doesn't mean that you have to go do a bunch of extra steps. It just means you're posting consistently to your website, which is consistently going to the app. And it is so important because the first two principles we talked about was getting the culture node to your leadership and promoting the app. But if you're not doing this third thing and keeping the app updated, then these first two steps are probably causing harm instead of good, because now you're encouraging people to open the app, but there's nothing there for them to look at. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how the app can be used as a tool and promoted as a tool that can become absolutely critical in your church and instrumental in helping to connect your church better and get the tools to the people in your church, instead of just a fun little tool that people can use so that you can say you have an app. If you have any questions about anything, if you read stuff online about apps and you have questions like what I mentioned about Google Play, we've been doing this since the end of 2012. Obviously, it's very important to us. We read all of this stuff you're reading, and if we thought there was validity to it, we would probably not be doing what we are. So we have answers for everything. So please do not hesitate to contact me personally. You probably have my email, you probably have my phone number, and you're probably also connected with me on Facebook. So feel free to contact me there, and I'd be glad to follow up with you and just talk to you about any of that stuff. And if when you're telling the leadership at your church about this, also please feel free to connect them with us if they have any questions. And last of all, before I go, sometimes I know it can be difficult to get the leadership together at your church. Perhaps you either don't know who these 30 core leaders are, or whatever amount there are, or maybe just getting them all in the room together is difficult. Something we have started doing to try to help churches be able to do this is we've started creating 10 to 15 minute videos that walk through a church's app step by step and talk about everything that someone can do with each step and why it's important. We charge nothing for these videos. We just want to do it because we see the importance of these 3 different things that we're talking about in this video. And one of those we want to make as easy as possible. We can't promote your app for you. We give you promotional materials. We can't keep your app updated. We can just make it easy for you. So now we want to help you with the first point of getting understanding out there. So we're creating these videos to make it easier than ever. So we post the video to YouTube and Facebook, and you can share it how you want, show it in your newcomer's lunch, whatever you want. But for absolutely free, we do that. So if you haven't already heard from us, or we haven't already done that for you, maybe contact us and ask us about it, or you probably will hear from us soon. All right, have a great day.